I'm so excited to have on the podcast today Jessica Slayback and Victoria Forsman, who are the co founders of Realm, Redesigning Education and Living Meaningfully. This is a micro school in Santa Monica, California, that the pair launched 14 years ago, back in 2010, with one student. Since that time, they've served 3,000 learners, and today they have 134 learners each semester, ages 4 to 14, with a new high school program coming soon. So, Jesse and Vicky, welcome to the Liberated
Thank you
podcast.
so much. Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here. It's so great to have you here. I was connected to you through a parent of some students that are in your program who just said, you have to interview these founders. They're just amazing. And I was so excited to discover you. So I want to talk all about Realm, and what it's like, what your vision is for the future. It sounds like, again, you're growing with adding on an additional high school program in the future. But let's start with the past and your backgrounds. How did you get into education, each of you, to begin with? Jesse, let's start with you.
Sure. So my mom was a teacher, and I swore growing up I would never be a teacher. That was not on my docket at all. But after going to just having a series of educational experiences, both good and bad, I was valedictorian of my high school, but didn't like high school, but didn't like the whole scenario. And then ended up at University of Chicago. And while I was there, worked a ton with different organizations in public schools, teaching theater and trying to get kids to be creative. Fell into Teach for America and ended up teaching in New York for a couple years. And that's where my brain started thinking, like, this system is a disaster. Something needs to change. Somebody needs to change it. And I would have my own little oasis of my classroom where I was doing things very differently than everybody else. I've learned about donors choose, and I got like 15 bean bags for my kids so they could learn on the floor and be comfortable. And again, just realized something needed to shift. So then I went to join a charter school called North Star Academy in Newark, New Jersey. And again, things were very rigid there, but I was able to get a group of kids and they allowed me, I was a baby back then, I was like 22. They allowed me to take a group of high schoolers to New Zealand. And it was then that I really had this aha moment. Here's what education is. Here's what we need to be doing. Kids need to be in the real world. They need to have life experiences. They need to change and grow. Their math scores, that's not going to serve them in the future. Their A's on their papers, that's not what's going to serve them in the future. And so then when I was pregnant with my first little guy, Roscoe, I got together with Vic, and just there was no place that I wanted to send Roscoe to go to school. So I said, let's build it. Let's make it happen. And we just put together a lifelong of learning, being in these different educational environments to build the realm.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a story I hear over and over again, right? That you can't find what you're looking for, so you have to go and build it. A true entrepreneurial journey.
That's right.
Vicki, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm the opposite of Jessie in every way. She's by far my better half. So whereas she was always the overachiever student growing up, I was the opposite. I lived outside of Chicago and went to public school and was one in a sea of kids for so long. And I traveled through most of my elementary, middle school experience, just going through the motions, never feeling really passionate or invested or seen as a student. And what changed for me was I went to boarding school when I was in high school. So all of a sudden I was I woke up to the fact that there was a totally different type of education that exists, where I was in small classes, held highly accountable in every class, almost forced engagement, which all of a sudden just shifted my entire way of thinking. That led me to a small women's college that I attended. And at that women's college, they had a laboratory school where people from all over the country came and watched these multi-age classes. And for me, I had some really big aha moments there, because I was like, oh my gosh, this makes a lot of sense. So you can put kids together, we can research big things, and kids can be operating at different levels. And So instead of doing a lot of my work when I was getting my teaching credential in a traditional school, I ended up spending most of my time at this lab school and just getting more experience there. Then fast forward, moving to California, very bizarrely, at the ripe age of 21, with all the wisdom that I held, I was invited to help develop another school that was very alternative, very creative. And it was because I had this multi-age experience, and it just was, it's where we met and allowed us to start to design curriculum and create outside the box learning experiences for kids. And that also, I think, just triggered us to recognize that there was a deeper layer that we wanted to go out on our own and build something for our kids.
Yeah.
So then we just started here. And the one thing that I can say about this journey is that we started, like in life, we started thinking it was going to go one way, and we just learned and kind of bend and keep learning as we go. And it's just keeps taking, that's how I feel like is happening with education. It's just shifting, and we just have to keep growing with the needs and changes that exist. So that's kind of what the realm does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I'd just love to ask you now, how have you seen sort of the disruption caused by the pandemic, changing education around you, right? It seems like you were, of course, doing this before it became trendy, beginning in
Right.
2020, right? Have you noticed others are now like, wow, I didn't know
Oh
this
my gosh.
existed?
Yeah, the conversation's completely shifted. You know, prior to COVID happening, it felt like when parents came in here, we really had to spend a lot of time untangling what they thought of as education. But I did it, but I'm fine. I went to traditional education. So it was always a lot of yes, but what could it be? Wouldn't it be great if your child could be honored for who they were? Wouldn't it be great if we could individualize these things? After COVID, it was like what people were begging for. Parents were done with the struggle. They were realizing, and I think they were seeing the lack of depth and the lack of individualization in their child's education. They were in the classroom with their kids because their kids were at home on the computer. They got to see firsthand, oh, this is what I'm sending them to. This is what's happening there.
Yeah, I think it just all of a sudden shed a spotlight on alternative educators. And so when there was more depth of insight on the quality of what was being offered and the actual level of engagement from each student in each family, I think families just started to question things a little bit more. And I think it makes it easier for micro schools and alternative schools now to really cause parents to question it and redefine what the value of education, the purpose of education is, And I think like a lot of things in life where we do things because it's what everybody is doing, and traditional school is one of those things. It just seems like an ingredient in the growth of a person. But when we start to ask ourselves questions like, is that the best way for us to get to a happy, healthy, successful future? Does that in fact work?
You know what I would say too? It was a very divisive time. Like there was a lot going on during COVID, and people were very much like, who's right? Who's wrong? What's the right way? What's the wrong way? And something that Realm has always done is we are a home for all opinions. We are a home for all different types of thinkers and learners. And then we show how that's what community is. We learn to work together. We listen to each other. We bend, we shift, but all were welcome here. We had people who wanted to wear masks for years. We had people who thought that that was the most ridiculous thing ever. We had people who wanted everybody to be vaccinated. We had people who didn't want that, but they could all come here. We just continue to be a space where we're showing, look, we can all live together. We can all have our different opinions and ideas, and we can still live together and learn together.
And also during COVID, like in all the different things that present themselves in life, we had to totally rethink and shift what we were doing. We were just like, kids need connection. So in addition to classes and things that could hopefully be highly engaging from a distance, we held things like chess and Dungeons and Dragons clubs on Friday night so kids could get together and not just participate in connection through classes, but be able to get together in a way that felt like they were
adapting to their needs.
adapting. And then also, as soon as we started to feel a tiny bit of flexibility where we could bring kids together, we were like, okay, we're going to reinvite the hikers club, or we're going to get kids together at the park, and we're going to get some games together where kids can have space between them. And it's just, again, it's really having the freedom, at least I feel like we're fortunate because we have the freedom to be flexible.
That's
all of the
That's the beauty of
changes that get, launched at us.
Exactly. You can adapt in real time. So
I love that. Vicki, you said something earlier about how when you launched, you had a vision for one way that Realm would go, and then kind of reflecting on that 14 years in, it's gone in different directions. Obviously, COVID, I'm sure, a big part of that. But I'm curious if you could share a little bit about what that sort of original vision was, and maybe what your early startup years were like, and how has Realm evolved over this last almost decade and a half now.
It's funny, when we started, we were thinking a lot in the vein of enrichment to education. So being able to be a place that could accessorize a person's education.
For homeschoolers, Vicki, or for everybody?
Or all schoolers. To be able to say, like, for kids who are doing traditional education, how can we provide them like deep dives into science? A lot of creative opportunity, like theater, music, but not just arts either. Like, how can we make our mathematicians be able to get more involved in it? Like, how can we take education and create engaging classes that allow kids to come and do that? And what we learned about quickly, and in California this exists, but not in every state, there's a lot of hybrid homeschool charter schools.
Yeah.
And so those charter schools were like, magnets to us, and right away got us started with
more students
supporting their students during the day. The homeschool community started to come and bring little tribes of kids to us. So it just took that initial vision and it expanded it in all these different areas and allowed us to learn so many amazing things, because even still today, when people say homeschool, they have this idea that the parent is always the primary teacher, and that it happens at home and the kid is isolated and lacks connection. There's a lot of ways in which people don't properly understand that. And it's the opposite. I feel like, especially in, cities like Los Angeles, there's so much going on. There's so many ways it can be done. And the Realm has just become a hub for as many exciting opportunities to learn as possible for families.
Yeah.
So that's what we've just constantly grown with the community. The other way that we've grown significantly is by connecting with educators within the community.
Yes.
And partnering. So we're not competing, we're partnering. So if somebody is doing incredible things with coding and robotics or language or coaching or something, we're like, let's get together so we can offer a buffet instead of all of us trying to survive in isolation.
We have our kids sailing in the marina. They go to Sender 1 for rock climbing. They go to gymnastics. It's fencing. We have this year with Beverly Hills fencing. So just awesome opportunities. And it's all part of their school day, and they choose it all.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned that you became a vendor for some of the hybrid homeschool charter schools in California. Just such an incredible program that enables families to be able to access more flexible learning and have basically funding to use at programs like yours that aligns with state standards as part of their charter school. And then you also mentioned that this is before we even started recording, that you sort of shifted from thinking of yourselves as more of an enrichment center to now more of a micro school. Jessie, I wonder if you want to chime in on what that has been like.
Yeah, I think we just realized it was almost like a flood. Like when people started to come here, they asked us, wait, but can my kids start coming here during the day? Could they be here all day? And we're like, sure, let's figure it out. And that's kind of what we did. And now what we've created is a program that really has just completely flipped the script, right? So instead of being a school that determines their schedule and determines what they're going to do and then invites kids into it, we listen to what the kids and families want, and then we create that for them. So our teachers create fresh new curriculum and fresh new classes every semester, and it's based on what they want, what they're passionate about, what they see as the need within our community. And our kids are invited to be a part of that too. So it really just switched from us kind of trying to drive this ship of like, yes, we want to offer these things, here's what's needed, to just being like, oh, the world's telling us what you need. We can build it. We've got this great team of humans willing and able and capable to build that. I mean, our teachers are all kinds of different people. You know, they're mathematicians, they're artists, they're marine biologists. What they are not in many circumstances are credentialed teachers. Because what we find is it doesn't matter. They are passionate about what they're doing. And because teachers get to have this freedom to be passionate and to play, that goes right back to the kids and helps them become passionate learners as well. It's a good life. All of our teachers and all of the teachers that started with us 13 years ago or 14 years ago are still here today. And I can't say that it's because we provided them a beautiful space to work or the greatest paycheck. Like, it's because they love what they're doing, and we're a family. We love being together and working on this.
We're all
That's
creative
incredible.
builders here, just in totally different ways. And the classes can range from everything from, you know, core algebra to how to survive a zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of way that we'll allow classes to, we try to make sure that we hit all the core subjects, but then provide other classes that, you know, inspire critical thinking, creativity, adventure, experience, community engagement. So,
well, the cool place that we're on in the journey now is really helping create almost like a realm in a box. Like, how can other communities in other places take this model and embed it into their community and in their place? Because it really is, we really consider this to be an educational revolution. And right now it's more ripe than any time. So if you go to our website, you can actually click on a link and say, we want to join this revolution. We want a realm here. Because anybody can take this idea that we've really honed into and create that in their own place. And that's what we're looking for, because what we see in these kids, in these families, it's just a dramatic shift in building these incredible learners. We have students from 20 who are not from 20 years ago, who are 20 now, and they keep coming back to us. When we first hired Hayden, who's opening our high school, he was like, what is happening? Why do people keep coming back here? Every week a new student would pop up, and he's like, that's insane. People don't do that. And we're like, oh, it's normal.
Well, it's a taboo. But I feel like one thing that we're also committed to, and literally I feel like other schools get in trouble, it's love-based. Like, we're very, very invested in each kid and each family. Like, they're not, that you don't get the kid without the family. And that's a totally different level of commitment to success. You know, we're all working together.
Well, there's no barriers here. Families are welcome to walk in the door at any time, join a class at any time, come and talk to a teacher at any time. We're just an open book, you know, and that's, again, part of the secret sauce.
And I love it, because a lot of people will say, you know, how do you measure success in these more alternative or innovative education settings? And you're showing some key metrics for that, right? You have 14-year teacher retention. Who has that? You have alumni who keep coming back because it's such a joyful space. You have 134 students a semester, 3,000 served. You have these incredible indicators that what you're doing is valuable, is important, and is having a huge positive impact. And it's just great to see all of that happen. I wonder if you can shed a little more light on how the families are using Realm. So they can attend up to 5 days a week as a drop-off schooling alternative, a full-time schooling alternative if they choose.
Yeah, go for it.
Or they can choose part-time options as well, I imagine. So tell us what you offer, and I guess how many people are choosing full and how many people are choosing part-time.
Yeah. So basically every time we need to meet a new family, it's a lot of listening. Where are they? What are they here for? Is it a philosophical alignment? Is it a need for a better experience for their child? Was there something not working? You know, it's really kind of going through a process of just understanding and then through that customizing. So some people might come here for one music lesson, one class, one tutoring session, a half day, a scatter plot of classes, or for us to take over the lion's share of their education. So we have about 65 kids, literally half of our students who are full-time, meaning we're taking care of everything for them. And when that's the case, we go through a process, especially with new students, where we do some really informal assessments, especially in math and literacy, just to find out where are they, how can we hit the target with the classes they're going to be put in. And then they're put in really small classes. Our average class size is 8. You know, so our intention is for everybody to be engaged and seen, and nobody's flying under the radar, you know? And then we start to build out the schedule. And then part of it too, and this is the most important thing that I think I want people to know about the realm, is that our intention is to cause buy-in from the student.
Yes.
And
Choice.
in order to do that, they have to have some choice and say. And so here, with a lot of new students, part of the process that I ask of them is, I'm like, try on as many teachers as you can in your first semester, if you're going to take a lot of classes, because inevitably every teacher has their own preferences and ways of learning. They could be super creative, they could be super logical and organized, they could be connectors. You know, there's different ways that we have natural preferences. So when the kids get to try these things on, inevitably after a few weeks, they're like, Mom, boy, I love Joe's math class. I want to take all my classes with him. And then this other teacher is more challenging for me. We feel like that teaches us incredibly important information, not about if they're able to learn or do they deserve a C, a D, an A, or an F, but it helps them understand that through different people, they have access to learning in an easier, more challenging way. And so therefore, as we're starting to collect this idea of who they are as learners and they're trying out their interests, they're starting to internalize not if they're good students, but how they learn, what works for them, what can they continuously grow in, and how can they position themselves in the future to go to educational establishments that teach more in a style where they're going to have success and joy around their learning.
Yeah, it makes them realize that they are not good or bad or right or wrong. They are a human and they are different than other humans because we all are our own unique messes, you know, and we can figure out how to tailor that for kids. And they're not stuck in any one choice. If classes need to be switched, classes need to be switched. If they're demonstrating they need more one-on-one time, more one-on-one time happens. You know, and again, it's never a criticism. It's we're working together to help this learning occur.
Yes. So one of the things, this is a phrase at the realm that we say all the time, is that we're all speckled eggs. Like we are all perfectly imperfect here.
Welcome to being human. We say all the time, welcome to being human, guys.
So the other thing I feel like we've kind of flipped on its head is this like appreciation for mistakes and for ruptures in life, you know? So they're happening constantly around here. Just because this is a small environment, we have every kid behavior, you know, a tech situation, social conflict that you can imagine show up here.
It does.
And what we really try to do is just use those as organic teachable moments for kids. And it's happening all the time, constantly, throughout the day and the year. Constantly.
So all of the 134 learners each semester are technically considered homeschoolers, legally considered homeschoolers.
Right.
Or
charter schools.
Or charters. That's right. Thank you for making that clarification. They could be enrolled legally as one of these charter schools that's a hybrid homeschool, kind of a public homeschool charter. I know they're called different things to different people.
Right.
So are you of the folks that are coming full time, kind of up to 5 days a week, are they, people who learners who were in a traditional school and then decided that they wanted something different because of, just being dissatisfied with the conventional system? Or are they families who kind of out of the gate, it almost sounds like this was the case for you, Jesse, decided you wanted something different for your kids? I guess what's the mix and has that changed at all in recent years?
Question. I would say that it's when we started, it was much more likely that people who had already chosen a homeschool path or kind of alternative learning would come and find us. I would say over the past 4 years or so, a lot of people are just very dissatisfied with what's happening in education. There was this switch that happened where they realized that just because that was how they were educated when they were a kid and it was good enough doesn't mean that that's what their children have to do. I think they're realizing that it's not a system that has to be the only system anymore. So I would say many of our kids now come both because they're dissatisfied and parents are tired of not being heard. They're tired of not being a part of their kid's education. They're tired of having to beg their kid and wake their kid up and get them out the door to get to school. Whereas for the realm, kids cry when they can't come to school.
Yes.
I had a doctor's appointment and I was like, buddy, I'm sorry, I just can't drive you in. And he was like, no, babe, I have to go. And I was like, okay, get in the car. Here we go. So it's just very, I think that's the change.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that change nationwide.
Yeah.
Parents are just realizing, oh, we don't just have to do what we
Yeah.
did. There's something different.
I think
This
there's
is what I love. This is what I love hearing across the country, from founders, and when I visit these locations, just the joy and exactly what you're saying, that the kids are upset when they can't go to school, when there's a school vacation, or here where I am in the Northeast, when there's a snow day, and it's the exact opposite reaction that I know I had when my public schools were closed for summer break, or when there was a snow day. And
We had
yet
to
it's
open a
such a
summer
common
semester.
yeah, it's such a common
What are we gonna
theme.
do if we can't come to realm during the summer?
So I'm sorry, you said what? You're running it.
We had to open a summer
You're on
semester.
a semester. Yes, and I've heard this too, right? Other founders will say, "All right, we'll just run for the summer because the kids want to be here." And it's just, I think, I'm curious what you think about this too, that maybe that's part of the shift with parents, is recognizing that learning can in fact be different and that it
Lately.
should be joyful. And I actually would think that it's programs like yours, people like you, who are showing that's possible, because I don't know that that was something that was even on the radar of parents,
I agree.
certainly a generation ago. What do you think about that?
um what do I think about the fact that we have a different style education? Is that the question?
Well,
No
just
more that
what's
parents
shifting
now
what's
know that it can be
shifting with
enjoyable.
today's parents that's
You
making
know,
them more open?
I think that there's a slow seepage of this idea that alternatives exist. And I
Mhm,
think we're seeing in all different types of parents, whether it's, you know, uh, any community, there's even highly academic communities are looking at these alternative models of education and seeing the substantial quality of excellence that can come from
mhm.
experience. And I think anytime you're splintering away from the herd, it's a slow movement. And so I feel like
Then you hit a
seepage is
tipping
the
point.
worst word, but it's like I kind of feel like that's what happened. It's just seeping out into the community that these other alternatives exist. And in combination with the fact that within families, there's just so much evidence of traditional education not working for
Well,
kids,
I
for
think
founding.
too, we're watching the world change drastically, dramatically, so quickly. Like we hear people say, we don't even know the jobs that we're training for anymore, right? So when school was a thing, when it was in its heyday in like the 50s, it was because we knew if we taught kids this way in these desks, in these rows, then they could go and work in a factory and do really well and be successful. We don't know what success even looks like. So let's shoot at what we do know, that as human beings, we want to be joyful We want to be connected to each other. We want to feel loved. We want to feel like we belong. Let's build that world, right? And I think that's the biggest shift is parents are, who knows if college is the goal anymore, right? It's too expensive. It's not even leading kids to productive, happy lives in many circumstances. So I think that's part of what's happening too. There's not, the path used to be like you go from A to B to C to D, and then you have kids and you're happy, and now it's like, what is this path? Where are we going? And so we got to go back to our core human needs, because then we can create an amazing future, and that is that sense of love, belonging, creativity, imagination, challenge. That's how we can serve our kids best, I feel like.
And not to discount college, because many of our students are like going into deeper learning. Yeah, it just brings into question, are there different ways that work? And does the traditional way lead you towards success?
Right.
Does it help you understand who you are, what your passions are, the way that you learn, what your gifts are, and how you could be a contribution to the world, how you can access that? And so I think we're just finding that there's a missing piece in education where a lot of kids get to college, they don't really know who they are, what they're passionate about. They might have cracked the code on how to get good grades, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily an adequate indicator of future success or thriving. So if we're trying to teach kids how to be independently aware of themselves as students and how to use the world as a place for learning. You don't have to go to a space necessarily to learn. You just have to be curious and learn how to learn and get out in the world and connect with people. And one other thing, I'm going to brag about Jessie for just a second. Okay, so something that Jessie does every year is she takes the kids literally out in the world to learn. And what that looks like, we have this for different age groups, but hers is with our oldest age group now, and it's excursions. And it's where kids can apply to a class before the year begins. And each year they go out of the country. So last year they did Japan. The year before they did Iceland, New Zealand. Anyways, and so what they do is they know that there's this place that they can go during spring break. And then what they go through a process of for a semester, you should be explaining this, not me. Well, you tell her what you do.
So they go through this great process of where they decide, what do I want to learn about when I'm there? What am I interested about? What am I curious about? How do I schedule a trip that meets those interests and those things? Oh my God, now how do we make the money so that we can go? So the kids have to find little jobs, and they have to do fundraisers, and they have to sell pizza to kids, and they have to paint mailboxes, whatever it is that they need to do. They each raise usually about $3,000 every single kid. Then they go online and they book the flights themselves. They find the Airbnbs or wherever they want to stay themselves. They connect with communities in those different countries to visit schools there, or to visit, the Peace Museum, or whatever it is they're intrigued about. I'm just going along for the ride. I kind of follow them on their passions. And then we go, and they get to know that, oh my God, I'm 13 and I just booked an entire trip to Japan. I saw all these incredible things. I took the Shinkansen. It was no problem. I know how to do that. And I raised all the money to do it. So now they know, oh, this is accessible to me. And how beautiful is that when in this global world, where we really have to start coming together, we've created kids, or hopefully have created this fire and this passion in kids to go out and learn from the world too. And they come back as different beings.
And to make it happen themselves. They're literally personally held accountable, because if they haven't, had enough bake sales or massage parlors or car washes or whatever, Valentine's Day parties, you
might have to live in a van.
They did in Iceland. They stayed in a van for 4 nights. These are the kind of funny adventures that happen, but it's like a live, organic learning. So
I love that. So what's next for the Realm? I know you're adding a high school this fall. Tell us a little bit about your expansion plans.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited. So we've met this incredible human, Hayden, who's the head of our high school. And he is just doing an incredible job building a program that is multi-tracked. So kids can, again, continue this kind of journey of just exploring themselves, and that's great. or they can really work on entrepreneurship and leading this path of like how to begin and start your own business and just crash course into life. Or there's like kind of more of that traditional path, getting what is needed so that they can head to higher education in their future. And so he's just done a beautiful job building that. And there's lots of information about that on the website as well. Secondarily, we're really at the place now where, again, we've been doing this now for 14 years. We're finally getting out and talking about ourselves and being on podcasts, which is so exciting. But we have this educational revolution bee in our bonnet. We really want to now get the word out that this works, that it's important, and that it can be done anywhere. That it really can be done anywhere, and it can be done in small ways, and it can all be based, like Vicki and I can not, nor do we want to duplicate ourselves, but we want other people to take the Realm idea on and make it their own, in their own cities, in their own communities. It'll look totally different someplace else, but with those same core tenets, really flipping the script on education, I think it can make a huge difference in a lot of people's lives. And it really is about this building a new idea of community too. I can't say enough how awful it felt during COVID, and when we were going through so much turbulence and so much pulling apart as a community. And I think what we all realized during that time, or hopefully we're starting to realize, we need each other. And the Realm, this educational environment, this center can be the center of a community. It can bring in all those differences in a place where everybody is welcome and all feelings and ideas are welcome. And it just, I see it radiate out, even in our little space in Santa Monica. I see it radiate out with the kids, and especially because we're involving the community. So long story short, we want more. We want people who are really excited about this to join us and to build this. That's what we want.
And I know you said that on your website, which we'll share in just a bit, and in the show notes, people can find a link to how to bring a realm into their own communities, which is really exciting to see that growth and inspiration for others. So I'd love, as we begin to wrap up, I'd love to just hear from both of you your reflections on 14 years of being education entrepreneurs, being founders. What has that experience been like?
Constant learning. I always say the day that we systemize everything and is the day that I'll probably retire. Like there's just so much to constantly learn and grow. And I think part of what happens here is that each year, not just can kids customize their schedule, we're constantly asking the question, what do we need more of in this world?
Yeah.
What do we need more of in the future? How can we create that and embed that into our offerings for people? How can we get better at managing situations of diversity? How can we be more inclusive? And I don't think that anybody ever becomes an expert in those things. I think it's a constant journey. And so I feel like we could write a whole book on the plot holes that we've stepped in and the flat tires that we've had and learning how to be entrepreneurs. We're both teachers that just, jumped into this lake and decided to go for it. So thank goodness I'm in it with somebody, or this would never have happened, but yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin on how many things we've reflected on, but I just know that it's been a continuous passion project and learning from what works and what doesn't work experience.
Yeah. For me, it's been the greatest journey of my life and the greatest gift. I get to be with my children every single day in this adventure, and I get to run this program that I believe in so deeply and I care about so deeply. I get to watch kids change and develop. I get to build tolerance for people and for ideas that I would have 10, 15 years ago had judgment for. I've gotten to learn to be a much more curious individual. I've become to accept my own self better because of Realm. I used to beat myself up for mistakes I would make or areas in which I felt like I was lacking. And because of how we teach at the Realm, it sounds crazy, but I have learned to just fully accept myself, the good, the bad, the ugly, and just remember that every single day I wake up and I can change. Every day I can wake up and become the next best version of myself. So it's been the greatest journey of my life. There's no question.
Yeah, I think it's purposeful living. Like,
Yeah,
that's the thing that I
purposeful
feel like we have the gift of.
Yeah, you can be so tired, and it's wonderful tired. It's that beautiful exhaustion of like a day well lived. Yeah, each day.
I love that. So if my listeners and viewers want to learn more about this magical place that you've built, maybe want to have a realm in their own community, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Definitely go onto the website, www.realmacademy.com. And when you go there, you can click a link to say join us. And there's multiple different ways. If you are an inspiring human being that happens to be in our area, come meet with us. Bring your talents here. Let's see if we can get you with some kids. Number two, we just opened up a foundation because inclusivity is huge to us. And for the past 14 years, we just never say no to someone. So if they can't afford to be here, they're here anyway. Now we're trying to help ourselves by bringing in some donations. So if you want to help in that way, please do. Please contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And number three, probably most excitingly, if you are excited about this idea of the realm and could see it fit in your community, join us, join the mission. We will get right back in touch with you about how to make this happen, because we're just so excited to bring this to as many places as possible.
Well, I'm so excited as well. I feel like the next 14 years of the realm are going to be even more exciting and have an even greater impact than your first 14 years. And so I wish you so much luck and happiness and joy. Jessica Slayback and Victoria Forsman, thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
Thanks so much.
It's been great.